Magneto might be regarded as one of the most powerful X-Men villains, but he's not necessarily evil. The redemption arc in his character has been successfully pursued in various comic book stories, and now X-Men 97 has introduced him as the new leader of the X-Men in the absence of Professor Xavier. With every episode so far in the series, he's proven his honorable intentions and loyalty toward Xavier's cause, and the 5th episode perhaps gives him the greatest honor ever, after he's offered the role as the ruler of the mutant nation of Genosha. However, there's a dark history in the comic books surrounding his rule of Genosha, and in this video we'll take a quick look at this time when Magneto was not exactly his current righteous self. Before we get into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Was Genosha really a mutant paradise? The reality of Genosha in the comics is a far cry from the gleeful portrayal in the X-Men 97 series so far, and this island nation off the east coast of Africa is not exactly a haven for mutants. The first mention of Genosha in the books suggested that it was a dreamland for mutants, with a high standard of living and prosperous economy. Genosha was peaceful and devoid of the political and racial violence that impacted the neighboring countries. However, the dark reality of Genosha was soon revealed, and we learned about how the prosperity of the land was based on the enslavement of the mutant population. The mutants who appeared to be free were actually properties of the state, and any child with mutant genes had to undergo a process developed by an infamous genetic engineer, David Moreau. This process stripped them of free will, and they lived the rest of their lives as genetically modified individuals who were created to serve specific functions in society. Some were designed to fulfill the labor shortage, while others served as soldiers, and this oppressive regime did not take too kindly to anyone trying to leave the country. Any escapees were tracked down and brought back by a special force of Genosha called Press Gang. Eventually, the terrible form of governance was toppled by the X-Men, and a new Genoshan regime was promised with better treatment and rights for the mutants. How was Magneto as the new ruler of Genosha, and how was the mutant nation destroyed? Change of regime doesn't always come with the promised peace, and it was no different for Genosha. Magneto and his acolytes continued to attack the Genoshan government because they were not willing to forgive their former crimes. After a period of political instability, the United Nations ceded Genosha to Magneto because of his demands for a nation that was only for mutants. Together with his acolytes, he established a brief period of peace, but it was soon interrupted by a civil war that left Genosha in violence once again. The remaining human population in the island were led by some individuals responsible for the previous oppression against the mutants, and they continued to oppose Magneto's reign. With an iron fist, Magneto controlled the widespread rebellion, and finally almost the entire island was back in order. However, Magneto had plans of his own, and soon he led a campaign of global conquest, where he wanted his powerful army to take over the world from the humans. The X-Men managed to intervene, and in the fight that ensued, Magneto was nearly killed. Thus, the ruler who was appointed with the hopes of restoring order turned out to be one to fuel violence in the land yet again. A killing blow to Genosha was dealt by Xavier's evil twin, Cassandra Nova, who sent in an army of sentinels to lay waste to the entire nation. What followed was a massacre of epic proportions, and millions of mutants were killed. Genosha turned into a wasteland of sorts, and the handful of survivors were evacuated. The rebuilding process of Genosha began under the watchful eyes of Professor Xavier and Magneto, and some of the survivors and newly arriving mutants tried to restore the former glory. The dark history of Magneto and Genosha continued further, when he learned about his daughter Scarlet Witch and her nervous breakdown and her ability to alter reality. He brought her to Genosha and sought help from Xavier, but the latter was unable to set things right. By the time the X-Men and the Avengers reached Genosha, the reality had been altered, and it extracted a heavy price to restore reality. Several mutants across the world lost their powers and even died, and Magneto was one of those who became powerless. He remained trapped in Genosha, and the current status of Genosha in the comics is that it was a wasteland, completely in ruins. Numerous wars and moments of destruction have left Genosha completely uninhabited, and it is because none of those in power had the right frame of mind to broker peace. How has Genosha been portrayed in X-Men 97? Earlier in X-Men 97, the stage was set for the first glimpse of the mutant nation, after the United Nations decided to admit them as a member state. Here in the 5th episode, Magneto, Rogue, and Gambit fly to Genosha to attend the historic event, and they receive a hero's welcome upon arrival. The contribution of Magneto by honestly accepting the trial against him and his further sacrifices in getting Genosha admitted is acknowledged by everyone in the land. The first impression of Genosha is that it is a happy and peaceful place, where mutants can freely use their powers and live a life without discrimination. The mutants who are shown in Genosha are all joyful and seem to be acting on their own free will, a far cry from the haunting reality of the comic books. Magneto is offered the position of ruler of Genosha by the interim council, and he accepts the offer as long as Rogue agrees to serve alongside him as his queen. After her initial apprehension, Rogue agrees, and it all seems to work out nicely for the future of Genosha. However, a dramatic turn of events changes things completely in the second half of the episode, and Genosha is attacked by an army of Sentinels. The lethal attack ensures several casualties, including Gambit, and even Magneto seemingly dies in the attack. The aftermath of the attack shows Genosha in ruins, and the remaining X-Men members watch helplessly on TV as the scenes of death and devastation are shown in the news. What if X-Men 97 is setting up the dark side of Genosha? While the first few episodes of X-Men 97 have been pretty engaging, you could be forgiven for thinking that the makers were playing it safe. The fifth episode, titled Remember It, turns things around completely, and following the mutant massacre in Genosha, the stage might just be set to unleash the dark side of Genosha. How the future episodes will deal with the topic remains a closely guarded secret, but a few clues might be lurking behind the ones responsible for the attack on Genosha. Cable's brief warning to Madeline Pryor before the attack takes place has made many wonder if Apocalypse is about to make an entry, but giant Sentinel robots are not his usual style of attack. A more likely candidate is Professor Xavier's evil twin Cassandra Nova, and the psychic attacks on Jean and Madeline during the attack might be pointing toward her. The aftermath of the attack shows several mutants dead, although the devastation is not the same as the one in the comics, where millions died and Genosha was almost left lifeless. Magneto is seemingly dead in the Sentinel attack, but he's far too important and will return in all likelihood. But will he stay back as the ruler of Genosha, a position he was offered during a council meeting? More importantly, is Genosha really a peaceful land for mutants as it seems from the outside? The fifth episode in X-Men 97 drops no hints regarding the presence of slavery or other forms of evil in the land, and the likes of Emma Frost, Nightcrawler, and Madeline Pryor in the council make it unlikely that such evil takes place under their knowledge. But what if everyone has been fooled about the reality of Genosha, and it will slowly be unearthed after Magneto takes over? If the comic books are any indication, and X-Men 97 hasn't made drastic changes so far, you might be in for a tragic ending of the mutant nation, and things might just go downhill from here on. Magneto might go back to his human-hating nature, and if he attempts something similar to his comic book action and seeks global domination after being deceived by humans time and time again, it will be up to the X-Men to stand against him. Also, whoever attacked Genosha is still out there, and someone so sinister is unlikely to stop until the goal of mutant genocide is complete. Whether Genosha has been an oppressive and totalitarian state under the pretense of a happy world, or will it succumb to those seeking its destruction? Only the upcoming episodes can bring us the answers. Marvelous verdict. Attack on Genosha makes things interesting. It would be unfair to say that X-Men 97 has been predictable in terms of the narrative, but the underlying theme of the original comic book story arcs has been retained. On the other hand, the show has also introduced some innovative changes that make it difficult to guess the next move. The admission of Genosha by the UN, and the following attack that has left key X-Men members like Gambit dead, has left it wide open regarding where the story will take us next. It can be just about anything if Magneto makes his expected comeback, and takes over as the ruler. And as we've said before, the comic book hints point to a not-so-happy ending for the mutant nation. Do let us know in the comments below what you think about the future of Genosha following the devastating Sentinel attack. We would also love to hear your opinion on the possibility of Magneto coming back from his apparent death and ruling the mutant nation. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.